Yo, what up? My name is ZuriKey, and you know what? Cut the theatrics. You. I see you sitting there, lazily, I might add. You think your life is so hard, huh? You really need to start counting your blessings. Things could be much worse. I mean, you could be the 3DS. Look at it, all sad and lonely and abandoned by Nintendo. And who cares? Anyways, as I was saying, this right here is my childhood DSi. Yup, I still have it after all these years and it still works. Okay, well, to be honest, it wasn't mine, it was my sister's DSi, but she lost interest in it very quickly and it didn't take long for this to become my DS. And oh man, did I play the crap out of this thing. I mean, you can tell by just how beat up this thing is. It's still in decent condition, but it definitely could not be passed off as new. Shoot, the L button doesn't even work anymore. The DSi was such a great upgrade from the original DS Lite, as the DSi came with a home menu and a camera and so many other features that made it feel like just a little bit more than a gaming system. If I wasn't at school or playing Little League Baseball or soccer, then I was playing my DSi. Until one faithful Christmas, when I received the Nintendo 3DS in a bundle with New Super Mario Bros. 2. Now you guys truly have to understand how young I am at this point in time. This is like pre-first grade type young. When you're a really little kid and you know you like Nintendo games and your DS, there isn't really any way to know what the new releases are. I had no idea that there was even a new DS, so you can imagine my shock when I woke up one Christmas morning to an entirely new system that I had never heard of before. On top of that, a new Mario game, a sequel to the very first video game I had ever played in my life. Sure, my family had the internet back then, but I didn't know how to use it outside of playing Flash games. So there's no way I could have known that the 3DS was even a thing it was going to come out. Unfortunately, this aspect of my childhood led me to just be a little late to every major release until I got to the age where I could actually follow the release dates of things coming out. If I just didn't happen to catch a commercial for the Wii U, I would have never known it was a thing. But I guess that's the case for most young kids of my era. We relied on commercials to let us know when there was a game we wanted. I'm not sure how it is nowadays, as young kids are definitely more tech savvy than I was at that age, but yeah. Needless to say, I was so happy this Christmas day. My grandmother had bought two 3DSs for me and my sister, the Cosmo Black 3DS and the Midnight Purple model. And now I want you to tell me which one of these was mine. Yup, the Cosmo Black one. I mentioned before that my sister had outgrown the DSi years before, so her 3DS saw very little playtime, and that's why it's in such good condition almost 10 years later. Mine, on the other hand? Wow, this is sad. Back then, it was always a tradition for me and my family to go on a trip to Chicago every Christmas Day to visit my outer family members that didn't live in Washington, D.C. I took this 3DS on the plane with me and I was glued the entire time. I beat New Super Mario Bros. 2 the exact same day. That was the very first time I'd ever beaten a video game in one day. And you gotta understand, this was a pretty big deal for me, who it took about 2 months to get past the first stage of the original New Super Mario Bros. And from then on, man, I was officially a Nintendo fan. So we have this 3DS to blame for the boy you see in front of you today. So today I want to do a retrospective of the 3DS and tell you guys some of the memories I've had with the console along the way. Me and this system have a very intricate and long history with each other, and even taking my personal experiences out of the equation, I want to look back on a pretty lucrative and successful time for Nintendo as a company. To preface, I was a very little kid, so a lot of these games I'm going to mention are going to be games you'd expect a little kid to be playing. So no, I didn't grow up playing any Fire Emblem or Ace Attorney on my 3DS, unfortunately. My brain was just too small to comprehend games like that. Basically, expect a lot of Mario. What else is new? It's no secret that Nintendo has always been the king of handhelds. Ever since the Game Boy came out in the late 80s, no one has really been able to compete with Nintendo when it came to portable gaming. And the DS, DS Lite, and DSi were no different. The Nintendo DS is the second best-selling game system of all time, just barely behind the PlayStation 2. And that's for a reason. People were going crazy over this thing. It had 2 screens. That was unheard of at the time. It allowed for so many experiences and experimental games to be released, and even Beyonce was playing it. Now, I've never dabbled in Rhythm Heaven before, but that's Beyonce, so maybe I should play some Rhythm Heaven. If Beyonce jumped off a bridge, would you? Yes. But the DS was getting a little old around 2010, and Nintendo was looking to start developing its successor. Early in 2010, the 3DS was announced to be an actual thing, and then later revealed at E3 of that year with a promo trailer featuring then president of Nintendo Satoru Iwata and the creator of Mario himself, Shigeru Miyamoto. This was such a hype press conference. Nintendo was really on top of their game at this point in time. Of course, the 3DS's main gimmick was the glasses-free 3D. With this little slider, you could adjust the game to be fully 3D or have no 3D at all. Now, back in 2011, this was pretty cool. However, as much as I thought this feature was cool, my parents were really paranoid that the 3D would ruin my eyesight, so I was not allowed to turn it on, and I always had to play my games on 2D. Joke's on them, because I still needed glasses by the 2nd grade. Take that, Mom! They announced some up-and-coming games in the works like Kid Icarus Uprising and another Nintendogs, this time with cats? Ugh. Then shortly after, it was made known that a new Mario Kart was going to come out to the system, along with an Animal Crossing and a complete remake of Ocarina of Time. Imagine that, hearing that they were going to be remaking one of the biggest games of all time for this tiny little system not too far away from its launch date, kind of similar to Super Mario 64 DS and the original DS. While the 3DS on launch was a little lackluster, there was a lot to look forward to. You just had to wait. In the meantime, if you bought your 3DS and you didn't have any games on it, there were some other things to do. We have our holdovers from the DSi like the sound and camera channel, but we also got a meme maker brought over from the Wii. If any of you watching this grew up with the 3DS and still have it, I advise you to check out the meme maker on it. You might be interested in just who you made in the app back then. For me, this thing is a time capsule of the people who I knew back in 2013, mostly my family and classmates from the 1st grade. My 3DS also came with a movie named Dinosaur Office?
Yeah, alrighty then, I guess I'll just grab something around here.
Yeah, I didn't know what was going on, but I used to watch this every day. New Super Mario Bros. 2 gets a lot of hate for kind of starting the bland New Super Mario Bros. Era along with New Super Mario Bros. Wii. But growing up, man, I loved the New Super Mario Bros. Series as it was my introduction to Mario himself. You gotta understand, back then, New Super Mario Bros. Didn't just feel like some lazy cash grab from Nintendo to take our money. If this was one of your first Mario platformer experiences like it was for me, then it was just another Mario game, plain and simple. I later got Super Mario 3D Land and Mario Kart 7 for a birthday, and I played the crap out of these two as well. I don't know if it was just me, but Mario Kart 7 always felt like a portable Mario Kart Wii in a sense. I mean, it uses a lot of the same music for the menus and whatnot. The 3DS's graphical capabilities aren't too far from the Wii's, so this game always felt like my little Mario Kart Wii on the go, which it basically was. Mario 3D Land. Oh boy. I think I can safely say I spent the most amount of hours in this game than any other. People like to call this game kind of bland, and in a way, yeah. This game is the pure definition of a Mario game. It's the most Mario game there is. But I am a strong advocate for 3D Land. There was so much that they did in this game that they just had not done before. 3D Land kind of served as the bridge between New Super Mario Bros. And 3D Mario. This is most definitely my nostalgia talking, but this is just a great Mario game. And that's all it set out to be. A great Mario experience that gave 3DS users something to do. I really don't know what people expected from this, but I think they expected too much. It had so much style and charm too. I mean, in between worlds, you would get these little cards from Princess Peach that urge you to keep playing to save her. It's the little touches like that that really made me remember this game after all these years. Don't ever let anyone tell you that 3D Land was just an okay game. It was great. Sonic Generations on the 3DS was a game I could never beat. It's a sort of watered down port of the actual Sonic Generations with only 2D sections and no 3D sections at all. But I still played a lot of it, but unfortunately I could never beat the final boss. Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. My first Luigi's Mansion and my only Luigi's Mansion game. Not for any particular reason, other Luigi's Mansions just haven't really grabbed me like this game did. I get so much nostalgia just by hearing the main house theme in this game. I wasn't smart enough to actually play this game without a walkthrough though, so I would just watch YouTube and then just copy what they did. Now, I only really played this 3DS for about a year, give or take, as not long after I received the Nintendo 3DS XL with a copy of Yoshi's New Island and Super Mario 64 DS. That was a really good Christmas for me. Yoshi's New Island was not well received at all, but like many other games I grew up playing, I loved it. Why does the internet hate everything I love? Don't worry. They can't hurt you here. The 3DS XL was such a cool upgrade to have, although I don't actually still have my original 3DS XL as I gave it away to a friend in 4th grade. Some of the buttons have been moved around, but all in all, there's not much different between the two besides the fact that the screen's bigger on this one. Now, if you want to talk about an actually interesting 3DS remodel, then look no further than the 2DS. Golly, this thing was trashed by everybody when it first came out. The main idea behind it was to be a cheaper alternative to the 3DS without the clamshell design and, of course, no 3D. And people did not like it at all. I remember it was around Christmas time years after the Christmas I got my original 3DS, and my mom had given me and my sister one of those Christmas catalogs where we would circle what things we wanted to get. I saw the 2DS and I was like, Mom, I want that. She was like, boy, don't you already got that? I was like, yeah, but this one looks different. Needless to say, I never got a 2DS. Even my mom could see that this was clearly a downgrade from the 3DS, but despite all the ridicule that this little guy got, it did serve as a pretty cheap alternative for parents who just couldn't afford to buy their kids a 3DS. It played the same games and did everything a regular 3DS could do, just without the 3D, which nobody even used anyway. Now let's get back to the games. Animal Crossing New Leaf was received fairly well and became a bestseller for the system. Of course, Pokemon thrived on the thing, all the way up until Pokemon Sun Ultra and Moon in 2017. In fact, now that I think about it, all of Nintendo's main IPs had a pretty good time on the 3DS. Except for Paper Mario. I don't know what it is, almost 90% of the 3DS games I grew up with are hated. People hate Paper Mario Sticker Star, and this was my first Paper Mario game ever. I loved it. I was too young to really see the flaws with it, unfortunately, but that's another childhood game trashed by the internet, I guess. I never really got to experience Kirby on the 3DS, but from what I've heard, he had some pretty good titles. No surprises there. Donkey Kong Country Returns was my first Donkey Kong game ever, and I recall really liking it. Don't remember if I actually got a chance to beat it though. And from what I've heard, this game is much better than its Wii counterpart. Mario and Luigi Dream Team was my first Mario and Luigi game, and I think my first RPG too. I couldn't actually read at the time though, so I played this game by watching Zach Scott Games play it and just doing exactly what he did. So a couple years go by of me playing the 3DS XL, and then bam, Nintendo releases the new Nintendo 3DS XL, a complete overhaul of the old 3DS with a more powerful back end and an extra thumbstick. I was about 8 years old at this point in time, and seeing the commercials and YouTube videos about the new line of 3DS systems gave me my first ever experience of FOMO, fear of missing out. I wanted this thing so bad. To be honest, I didn't even know why. There weren't any exclusives that I really had interest in playing. I didn't care about Xenoblade Chronicles 3D, but the main things that made me want the new 3DS was the supposedly better 3D tracking and the amiibo support, as I had an amiibo obsession back then. I got it for my birthday along with Majora's Mask 3D, my first ever Zelda game ever, and I loved it. That freaking moon freaked the heck out of me though, but I enjoyed the time traveling aspect and the game's more sinister vibe compared to Ocarina. For my first Zelda game ever, not a bad choice. Smash Bros came out, although by the time I got it, I was already knee deep in Smash 4 on the Wii U, so I did not play this version often. I mainly only got this game so I could use my 3DS as a controller on the Wii U version. Early new 3DS was the best era for the 3DS in my opinion, as it seemed like Nintendo had finally figured out the system. 2015 goes by and I'm following all of the major releases that I was interested in and also dabbling in some indie games like Shovel Knight and Shantae. But over time, I want to say around 2017 or so, I kind of started losing interest in the 3DS. This system that had been serving me for more than half of my life at that point just wasn't really exciting me like it used to. It was on its way out, and for me personally, the final straw that broke the camel's back was when they brought Super Mario Maker over to the system. I was so hyped for this. It sounded like such a great idea, but what we got instead was a severely watered down port of the original Mario Maker that didn't even allow you to post your levels online. You know, the entire point of Mario Maker? You could only share levels in this game locally. And who was carrying around their 3DS in 2017? Of course, this is still Mario Maker, so you can still make stages the way you could on the Wii U, but now on the go. They got that aspect of the game down to a T, but Mario Maker without the ability to post levels is just not Mario Maker. As you can probably tell, this game really upset me back then. I couldn't understand what would compel Nintendo to make such a backwards game. Shortly before this game came out, the Switch had already been announced, and while Nintendo was still trying to hold on to the 3DS for a little bit longer, it was ultimately over. They made some ports and remakes and some new games, and while those were cool, I mean, come on, nobody's really worried about the 3DS in 2017. They would announce things that, while they would have been cool if announced a few years prior, just didn't really hit the same now that Nintendo had a brand new shiny console to unveil. Things like Super Nintendo games finally coming to Virtual Console. Like, yeah, that's great, but who cares at this point? I know that's not how everyone felt, but that's how me and a good majority of other Nintendo fans felt. The Switch came out in March of 2017, and I didn't get it until December of that year, but even then I just didn't want to play my 3DS because it just felt old. Nintendo were trying their absolute hardest to keep the 3DS alive when they could have been taking all that time and money and putting it towards the Switch. I guess they felt like they were still in a position where they could keep supporting the 3DS while launching the Switch, but to me, I just couldn't be bothered. Crazy, right? I mean, this is the 3DS we're talking about. The system that I had been playing my entire life, and I just threw it to the side like that for the new shiny thing. Looking back, I still feel how I felt back then. They should have ended the 3DS a lot sooner than they did, but I can't blame them for trying. But as you can see, me and the 3DS go back far, and I would never trade the memories I've had with this system for anything. It truly does mean a lot to me. I mean, why do you think I kept all my DSs all these years? If it weren't for the 3DS, I don't know if I'd even still be a Nintendo fan today. I would have gradually stopped playing my DSi and found another hobby. So to the 3DS, thank you for all the memories you provided me and the passion for gaming you instilled inside of me from a very, very young age. The 3DS by far will always be my favorite handheld of all time, and it means a lot to me. Oh, don't get comfortable, Nintendo. I will never forget.